Dear Diary, today we are putting wild and wacky country shapes on a scale of 1 to 10, based off of, well, nuttiness. Quick run through of the rules before we begin. Number 10 is Austria. I put Austria here exclusively because of this doggone panhandle that they have in the east here. It mostly encompasses Tyrol, a historical region that is also in northern Italy, right down south where the sun don't shine. Now, the reason for this panhandle shape is because of the mighty Alps. I won't go into the historical reasons because we would be here for days on end, but the general shape is due to the mountain range going east to west. Mostly. To me, it's just kind of weird looking. The rest of Austria is normal, but it has this big honkin' spaghetti noodle coming out of the west. I don't like it, it's weird, and I disapprove. Number 9 is the Vatican City. Now, I don't want to get in any trouble here, since it's a holy religious center, but you gotta admit, it looks pretty weird. The reason it's so confusing to me is because their borders are entirely geometric shapes, and also, it's the only country I know to have an individual circle in its borders. I don't know why that's weird to me, but it is. But why, you ask, do they have such a goof shape? Well, it's because of their size. Vatican City is the smallest country in the world by far. Their land area is only 0.17 square miles, or 0.27 kilometers. You could jog around this place in half an hour, if that, and you'd have circumnavigated the whole thing Magellan-esque. Like Monaco, it's so small that you can see individual features on its borders, like the different angles and shapes of the walls surrounding the tiny nation. It's just weird looking, I tell ya. Number 8 is Norway. The third European country on the list, Norway hogs all of the Arctic coastline of Scandinavia, preventing Sweden and Finland from grabbing any of that delicious ocean. Well, Finland used to have it, but that kinda, didn't go well. This is kinda like what Croatia did to Bosnia, where it slid all the way down the coast and prevented the Bosniates from getting any sea juice, messy coastline and all. Now, I don't know, the exact historical reasons about how Norway ended up with this amount of coast. Maybe Norway's just built different, but it could have something to do, I don't know, with the fact that Norway got passed around by all of their neighbors for most of history. I don't know how those two things connect, but if there's any Norwegians in the chat, make sure to drop a Vecklofter in the chat. I don't know where to go from here. Number 7 is Guatemala. So Guatemala is a nation in Central America, south of Mexico, and I put it on here because of this big square chunk that's in the north. Interestingly enough, within Guatemala, the entire thing is just one department, which is equal to a state or province, called Petén? Petén? Sure. Throughout most of Guatemala's history, Petén was gosh darn near impossible to build large cities in, so when the modern age came a-knockin', Guatemala took the opportunity to send many waves of settlers into the new territory to create some towns here and there. It doesn't look like it belongs to Guatemala to me, but maybe like a small Mexican state, but I don't know, whatever. Alright, time to advance. I've moved on from this. Now, number 6 is Mali. I don't want to harp on Mali too much because it's one of my favorite countries in the world. There's so much rich culture and history packed into the country, but also because Africa is an absolute gold mine, Mali pun, of unusual country shapes. Of course, this has to do with colonialism. When Europe took over Africa, they needed borders for their new territories, so they decided to ignore 3 million years of cultural and historical differences, and unilaterally decided to just draw literal lines in the sand in no real order. And as such, we have stuff like Mali now. Really, do you think hunter-gatherers would come up with a perfect 90-degree angle on their own? Picking on Africa for their borders would be too easy, kind of a low-hanging fruit, so the ones in here are the goofiest ones I could find. Sure, it would be easy to joke about most of them, but some are too gaff to leave out, such as Mali and like Namibia and stuff. Number 5 is Vietnam. So Vietnam is a special case because this doesn't reflect colonialism as much as you'd think. Vietnam, located in Southeast Asia, used to be a colony of the French, so naturally, as colonizers tend to do, they messed up the borders. Or did they? See, throughout history, Vietnam has been the home of many a great civilization, and in many of these civilizations, their borders actually would hug the coastline north to south, just like this. Methinks this is because Vietnam is very mountainous, so they naturally pulled a Chile and just adopted the mountain's chain direction. Either way, they're in this position, and we either have to live with it, or not live with it, and I'll live with it. There's no denying, though, that it certainly does look pretty weird. Numero 4 is Zambia. I do confess that this is another African country, but come on, it does look pretty screwball-y. I exclusively put this one on here because of that gap in the middle, which is a long panhandle that belongs to the Democratic Republic of the Congo up north. As you can probably tell, it's a good example of the arbitrary and weird boundaries European colonizers set up. Regardless of the history, it doesn't change the fact that Zambia looks weird, and I'm here to criticize it. The Congo pedicle divided Zambia up into 2 separate parts, which to me is pretty disrespectful. Imagine if that happened to your country. Instead of walking from one side to another, you have to reroute and go down and up. The gall on some people. Hashtag disrespect, dude. I thought we were friends. Number 3 is Mozambique. The Moz is another African country who has the same problem as Zambia, but this time it's not the Congo, it's a whole other country. That country in question is Malawi, in case you were wondering. The reason for this at least makes sense, however. See, Malawi entirely borders Lake Malawi, a long and vertical lake. As such, being hoit betwixt Mozambique, it separates it in half. So while it might not look epic for the win, it at least makes some sense. Other than that, though, I don't have too many complaints. Alright, eyes front, get on your feet, let's move on. Number 2 is the Gambia. Look, I really didn't want to double down on Africa, but good God does the Gambia look strange. But again, this one makes sense. As you could likely infer from the little svelte opening at the front gates here, the Gambia is entirely centered around the mighty West African Gambia River, to which this tiny river nation completely envelops. While this one at least makes some sense, I still don't like the look all that much, because it has circles in it. As in, like, the border has geometrically identifiable circles in it, like the Vatican yonder. That's weird, right? Like, there's no reason that's weird, it just is. And finally, number 1 is Azerbaijan. So, this glagolitic strange simply because of everything. So first of all, nobody can really explain where Azerbaijan is geographically. Some say Europe and some say Asia. Me personally, I think it's in Europe because it's west of the Urals, but that's a story for another day. Point being, there's a lot of controversy in this tiny country, and not just with its location. There's a lot of political and ethnic stuff, but we aren't here to discuss that. One of the feature creatures of this place is this exclave called the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, which is cut off from the rest of Azerbaijan. The way you can get to it is going through Armenia, and the Azerbaijanis and Armenians typically aren't huge fans of each other, so this was awful planning on their part. I mean, look, it's just weird. This wraps up this one, friends. Here's some of the next few videos I got lined up. Britain's white settler colonies and their histories. 10 weirdest dictators you should know but likely don't. Obscure nuclear programs in other countries that failed. That one's going to be an Obscure Corners one. And others. Join me next time as I milk this franchise dry, conquer the world, and pulverize some beef chuck. So, like I was saying, we'll see you next time, mein Liebchen. Dusseldorf.